Hey, this is Mark, and this is episode 13, and a very special Halloween edition of the Why Are We Still Doing This podcast. And in this episode, I'm joined by two of my longtime friends, Kevin and Colin Moran. I've known Kevin and Colin now for almost 30 years, and out of anyone I've ever known in my life, they have, by far, some of the most unique and polarizing paranormal experiences and stories I've ever heard. We talk about the history of their childhood home and the vast amount of paranormal activity that has taken place in the home for well over 50 years, including a chilling face-to-face encounter with an apparition. We also share hilarious Ouija board stories and shenanigans from our youth. We talk about loved ones who've passed on and now visit us in our dreams. We question the rules of haunting and if ghosts are given the choice of where they can haunt. Connecting with family members long after they've left this earth, and so much more. This was an incredibly fun episode, which was recorded fireside outside of the Moran family home. And some of the stories that are told in this episode truly gave me goosebumps. I have not heard some of these stories in well over 25 years, yet they're still just as chilling. If you have a unique ghost story of your own that you'd like to share, you can write to me with that at whyarewestilldoingthispodcast@gmail.com. Why are we still doing this podcast at gmail.com? And if it's a good one, I'd love to share it in a future episode. So I hope you all enjoy this episode. And here is Kevin, Colin, and I. But, yeah. So we got the Ouija board. No, nobody's got the Ouija board. It's made by Milton Bradley.
It is made by Milton Bradley. I mean, like, I say that because I don't want Brixton to think that we're conjuring real spirits, but Mom bought us the Ouija board. And so we brought it downstairs, and it came with a much more complicated set of instructions that I'd never seen before. And she got it from Goodwill. And it came with, somebody had printed out the legitimate instructions on how to conjure spirits. So we were place a coin on the board, light a white candle.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Beforehand, Introduce yourself. Say that we only wish to have good spirits in the room.
I never did any of that.
And so on and so forth. So this is how Brixton, I said, we're going to do it this way. The Ouija board went nuts. And so for all the years that I've doubted whether or not the Ouija board has worked, do it with like a 12-year-old who's never done it before. And don't move it yourself.
What do you mean?
Well, because you know how you always thought it was somebody?
Yeah. So you don't even touch it?
No, you lay your two fingers lightly on the planchard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you hope it moves, right? Uh-huh. And the whole time you're doing Ouija as a kid, you're like, "Oh, Kevin, you're moving it. You're moving it." And then Kevin's like, "No, I'm not moving it. I'm not moving it."
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah.
But do it with somebody like a child who's never done it before, and don't move it yourself. That planchard was going like this.
Is that what it's called? Planchard?
The planchard, yeah.
Okay, so one of my Ouija board stories, I was, I don't know, probably 8 or 9, and it was my uncle and I, and we were at my Bapchi's house where he lived, and I don't think he had any clue how to do it. We just took it out of the box. We put it on the table, and we put the planchard down, and he didn't even say, like, "Oh, put your fingers on top of it." He was just like, "All right, now, just think of something." He goes, think of your dog Fred at home. And I think he thought just by thinking it was going to go all over the board.
Oh gosh.
So we're sitting there like, I'm looking at it, nothing's happening, and then I look up at him, he's like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe there's no batteries in it." So we just gave up on it and said, "Okay, we're going to, shelf this." But my other one that I remember, it was me, my sister, and my cousin. We were at my cousin's place, my aunt's house. and we were talking about spirits, and we said, "Are there any spirits in the room?" And it hovered over to yes. And we said, "Can you spell out the spirit's name?" And it went E-L-V-I-S. I swear to God, it's spelled Elvis. And so we were all like, oh my God. We were all like looking at each other like, and then for the next like 10 minutes, I kept looking around the corner, like down the hall, and I kept expecting to see Elvis come around the corner, but I didn't know if I was going to get like Jailhouse Rock Elvis or like Vegas Buffet Elvis, you know? But
Toilet death Elvis.
Needless to say, nothing ever came, but those are the only two that really stick out for me.
The Ouija board story I have that cracks me up the most is my brother Scott and I were playing one night, and I'm like 12 or 13 at the time, super into baseball. So we start Ouijaing, and I'm like, I wish to contact an old, baseball player, so on and so forth. And all of a sudden they're like, I'm here. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. Like, what is your name? And it spells out a name like, Joe Blackwell. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Joe Blackwell. Like, what year did you play? 1911. I'm like, gee, like, what team did you play for? The Philadelphia Athletics. And I'm going nuts because I'm like, this is great. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to go check this against my baseball encyclopedia. So I ran upstairs, grabbed my giant baseball encyclopedia. I go to like B's, and I'm like, there's Joe Blackwell, 1911 Philadelphia Athletics. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, this is incredible. And I turn around, I'm like, Scott, can you believe this? He busts a freaking gut laughing. Because he had.
Oh my God.
Right. He went up to my room.
Oh my God.
Looked up the most random, earliest 20th century baseball player. And then, I mean, it couldn't have worked out better for him. And because he just knew I would want to talk to an old-timey baseball player. He memorized Joe Blackwell, 1911 Athletics,
That is incredibly smart. And it's so funny because in that moment, you're hoping to get like Joe DiMaggio, right. And you get some middle reliever from the Brewers. I
had 3 at-bats in 1911, and then I worked on a farm.
I have a career ERA of 6.53.
I died of black lung from working in the mines. I will just always know. I'll never forget that as being one of the most clever, well-researched, because had I not asked for a baseball player that night, his whole thing would have been for naught.
How old were you?
I was about 12, so Scott would have been 16, 17 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so funny. All right, so I really wanted to do this episode because obviously you guys had told me all these insane paranormal stories about your childhood home where we're sitting at right now. I remember it was like at least 25 years ago the last time I heard some of these stories, and I still remember most, if not all of them, because some of them were, I feel like, straight out of a movie, to be completely honest. And I've always been fascinated with the paranormal, ever since I was a kid. I've always been curious, but it's one of those things where like I enjoy it, but also kind of like scares the hell out of me, kind of like stand-up comedy. Like, I'm scared to death every time I go up, but it's such a rush, you know what I mean? So, and some of the stories you guys have told me about this house, including the ones like in the last 10 years, I think those are fairly mild, the ones that I've heard from the last 10 years. But some of the earlier ones, like when you guys were kids and you've told, I've told people about them and find them absolutely terrifying. And I first, again, heard these probably like at least 25 years ago. And they've kind of still stuck with me today. So before we talk about any of those, because I don't want to spoil anything, if you guys want to talk about a little bit of background on the home, including who lived here before, the former owners, and sort of when you guys had moved in, because I don't remember exactly when that was, when you guys had moved in.
Are we starting the show?
We're rolling, Kevin.
Kevin, I believe Kevin can attest to the history of the home.
Yep, I have that. So the home was actually built by a man named John Cayley, and John Cayley actually came from the Isle of Man, which is a little tiny island between
I don't know.
Ireland and England. I think, it's right in that it's not the English Channel, but it's another, I don't know, it's probably called the Sea of Ireland or something like that. And so anyway, he came from this little island, and he came here, and he actually bought the property from the Plunketts. He bought the property. By trade, he was a stone mason. He was a stone worker, and he actually built a great number of the bridges that are in Adams right now.
Really?
Yep.
You can also tell, too, from the foundation work on this house, as well as the stone staircase that goes down to the back.
And so, yeah, all the stone that is in the whole basement is like his work. And I actually think I know where he got the rock too, which is up off of West Road. There's
that totally
remnants of a
makes sense.
quarry
Yep.
up there, and it just matches the rock that he used for the foundation. Well, mainly the stairs.
And we didn't have to do
stairs.
foundation work on this home until 1 or 2 years ago. So that's how long his work stood the test of time.
And that was built when the house was built in.
So the main section, this structure you see almost in a barn shape, was built in 1901.
Okay.
And this additional part, I believe, was 1912.
The part that comes
Out and makes it an
I think
L.
it's 1904. I don't know exactly.
Well, because there's a marker in the basement, and I believe it's 1910 or 1912.
That sounds about right.
So originally the house stood without this front section. So our house is shaped like an L, but imagine, the part that makes it an L isn't there, so it's a capital I. And then eventually they added on and made it the L shape. So
Eventually, like a lot of the homes in Adams here, they've added on.
yes.
Right.
Well, and also too is people. I find it hilarious about this home is that people will show up and think it's large inside, and it's not really large inside. They built these homes to look large, but once you get inside the hallways and stuff like that, try to get a mattress upstairs in this home. It's nearly impossible.
You open the door and the stairs are...
Yeah. I haven't gotten a new mattress in 20 years because I don't want to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got the couches in the living room.
I don't know.
What did people sit on in 1910? What were they like?
Bales of hay.
Exactly, bales of hay. Yes. Yep, that was probably it. I mean, oh my God.
And the first occupants of the home, I've heard, but it was someone who had a flower business. Is that correct?
It was the gardener for the Plunketts?
Well, so
Or you can clarify.
it was this John Cayley guy. He does a lot of stonework around town, but he would actually later, I think, go on to like raise pigs or something like that. But his wife, I think, ran right in the front lawn here. Was at one time there was a greenhouse, and that was her greenhouse. And then I believe, and I'm trying to scroll through my
It's fine.
notes here, that I think that they were like dahlias or something like that. They had two sons, one of whom grew up to be a big, kind of a big wig in the Woolworth Company. And I believe he was also fought in World War I as well.
Really?
Wow.
So, and the other moved to Utica, New York, and became a factory foreman. And they grew fancy. They say they grew fancy flowers in the front yard and sold them as well. And she actually, the wife actually had a really big reputation according to all the news articles that were written about her or mentioning her at the time. And as a matter of fact, she used to go downtown and decorate the front windows of like businesses.
Really?
With her flowers. Yep.
So was that the only family that lived in this house before Mom and Dad bought it?
No. So the Kayleys, then passed away, and the house was then, and Mr. Cayley died here.
Right. That's the one death in the house. There was a death in the house.
Yeah.
And how do you know that? Where did you find
Because
that?
It's documented.
It's in his.
Yeah.
It's in the
Like the obituary?
obituary.
Yeah.
Died
We don't,
at
do we know
home.
what
Yeah.
room?
I don't know if there were
Please don't tell me it's my room.
No.
That explains so much.
I'm sorry. I think
Please say it was the basement. Please say it was the basement.
No, I think he actually. Gosh, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to remember
Why
here.
would they?
I know. And he died in the living room.
He was wearing Smurf pajamas. Like, why would they?
He was having breakfast.
I think he died outside. I don't think he died. In the
Really?
house, yeah. And so, I think I read
No,
that.
that's kind of fascinating.
No, it is. Yeah, it is.
And so anyway, the Kayleys then sold the house to the Stefanskis, and the Stefanskis owned it for as long as they owned it, which would have been around 1968, I believe, and which is when our parents, Fred and Marilyn, bought the house.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but when they bought the house, of course, is when everything kind of started, right?
Well, I mean, as soon as they moved in, I mean, the stories that I've heard were from before Kevin was born.
Yes.
During his infancy, probably up until like the late 70s. There
Yeah.
didn't seem to be that many stories following like my birth and my entrance into the home.
Yeah.
But some, various experiences that they had that were more intense, I believe, than anything I've experienced here.
Yes, and that's what I've heard about, from Kevin, but also things that your mom has said too. But there was something, was one of the owners in a wheelchair?
Believed
So
that was the
is-
thing that I heard, that one of the owners was in a wheelchair and had a nurse here who would take care of them.
Yeah. So the only thing I can pinpoint this
Hey,
to
Scott,
is brother Scott is walking in.
we are doing a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is how we normally talk to one another.
We're on a Zoom call right now. We're just in the same space.
Now, who's this with the hood on? I can't see your face.
It's your brother Kevin.
Oh, Kevin!
Heck.
Yep,
That's
no,
funny.
we're doing a Halloween themed podcast for Mark's podcast.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
Great. Spooky.
Actually, I told the Ouija board story about when you researched that player from like 1911 for the film.
Oscar Fitzwillie.
That's what it was,
friggin'
Oscar
hilarious.
Fitzwillie.
That's hilarious.
It was Oscar. But then all of a sudden, I knew that the Ouija board was going south when, as I started to question this baseball player more and more, he was not answering my questions so much as spilling out boobs, gonads. Like, what? Oscar? I want to know what it was like to play Major League Baseball. Boobies.
That is funny.
Enjoy your day, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So
Yeah, I believe we were talking about the
So,
experiences
yeah.
that mom and dad were having.
So again, I had meant so. I
So
asked
are we
about
talking
someone,
about the I believe that this is all that I can I'm venturing a guess here, is that John Cayley's wife, whom I'm sorry that I don't have her name right in front of me, may have been confined to a wheelchair later in life on the first floor, and her bedroom was where our TV room is now. So if you were to enter the front door, it would be to the left, and so that was I'm venturing a guess there, because when mom and dad came, they didn't really know all of this, of course, but so they moved in, and and this is 1968. There was nothing to be suspicious about the house, but they moved in, and then like strange things started to just happen in the house. Like it was an occasionally, mom would say that like she'd walk upstairs,
Yes.
and then she'd get halfway up the stairs, and then just be a blast of cold air coming down the stairs all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Dad used to say too, it felt like somebody was passing you.
Yep.
It felt like when you're walking up the stairs, it felt like
Stairs.
that subtle push of air that you have if somebody's passing
Yeah.
you in a corridor.
Of course, it's and it's a very narrow hallway.
It's
Has
very
anybody
narrow,
walked
yeah.
up that thing, and the steps, the treads are actually very narrow too. So it's actually a tricky stairway to get up.
Two people could not go up and down like you traditionally, like you have to wait. So that's where I think you feel that pressure. It's like whatever was going down the stairs against you just was.
At my aunt's house, the stairs are very much like that, where it's like there's walls on both sides, so you feel very claustrophobic in a sense. But the reason why I'd asked about the wheelchair, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you guys had said at one point there was a lot of activity for a number of years until your dad found something in the basement.
Yes.
And took it out. And what was that?
Our basement, of course, has a coal cellar, and there was, when my parents moved in, there was still stuff still in the attic, and there was stuff still in the basement, and there was stuff stashed, kind of stacked up in the coal cellar. Didn't need it anymore. It was just, they just put stuff that was in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all of this weird stuff, is happening. So Dad apparently one day, and this is a couple years into owning the house, or maybe even when I was a little baby or something like that, maybe when I was born, he is cleaning out that coal cellar of stuff, and he's finding old shovels and whatever, so old bicycles, and so he keeps on digging, and then there's this kind of like, to get to the coal cellar, I don't know how you describe it, but like it's kind of like two rooms. You go through this kind of rickety door. The door's got to be original to the house, that's for sure. And then you kind of go in, and then to the left, there's kind of like where the front of our stone stairs come out, but it's kind of like a, now it's just sort of a dirt floor because it's all cleaned out now.
And they have a little window, which is where they would have poured the coal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the second room.
Yeah.
And that's the second room. So Dad said that when he started cleaning out that space underneath the front stairs, he came across an old wheelchair. So, he loaded up the truck with all this junk, including the wheelchair, and brought it to the dump. And he goes, after that, he goes, there was no rushes of wind up and down the stairs, no keys, that he left on the first floor or the second floor. Well, overnight on the on the first floor. Me when I was a baby, they said that of course I would kick and scream in the middle of the night, and they'd get up and I kick all my blankets off and stuff like that. They'd go downstairs, get a bottle or whatever, come back up, and there I am, sound asleep, all tucked in.
And
those were the experiences. Some of the
the
experiences that
back.
our parents had before they threw out that wheelchair was, keys going missing. You'd place your keys on the counter at night, wake up the next day, they're not there. Where are they? They're under the living room couch. Stuff like that. My mom would always tell me, because in our kitchen we have these almost floor to ceiling windows on one corner, and she would come down late at night to get a drink of water, look into the window and see reflections of people in the room with her that weren't there.
That's one of the ones that gives me chills. It
that
gives me
always
chills right now.
spooked me out. And then to Kevin's point about, I believe, is that it was seen by either mom or dad that when they walked into the room, they saw an apparition over you, kissing you, or at least hovering or watching over you. And we feel that was almost the nurse-like ghost. It could have been a nurse. It may not have been, but it was a benevolent spirit. One thing we've never felt about the spirits in this house is anything evil.
Yeah.
I think like you listen to a lot of you listen to a lot of podcasts, you watch a lot of movies. Everything's evil. They want you to leave the house.
Exactly.
Leave the house. It's like, but you know what? Because that makes money. Because no one's ever cared about like Casper the indifferent ghost.
Exactly.
Like it's like I think whatever spirits are in this home, we're always content to just exist with us. I never felt like, and even through my experiences which happened post the wheelchair, I never felt terrified.
Yeah, and so I want to park a couple of those thoughts, but I know that growing up, we didn't have a lot of those paranormal shows that are just saturated television today, and a lot of them I do enjoy, but some of the time they're over the top. And some of the reactions, they don't seem very genuine. But then again, I've never really had that kind of experience or with the paranormal. I mean, I have, but we'll talk about that later. But I guess if we want to talk a little bit about some of those stories, so the one where you mentioned your mom coming down and seeing people in the room with her in the glass as a reflection, how did that conversation come about? Did she tell you guys this when you were kids, or
Yes.
when did she? Okay,
yes.
Like, how old were you when she told you this?
Very young. I don't think there was much shielded to me about the home. I live here now with my mother and my brother, and half the time my daughter Brixton, who is very aloof to much of the things that went on in this home, although she is kind of suspect because I have either slipped up in conversation and made mention of things or said something and not thinking that she was in the room.
Yeah.
So also, too, if you're listening to this podcast and you know my daughter, please do not mention any of these ghost stories.
I was going to say, I don't know if the kids are going to want to come visit Grandma anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, because Brixton has felt things in this home.
Mm-hmm.
She has not seen or experienced things. I have in her room and so on and so forth. But Mom and Dad told us these stories as casually as they would have told us something from their childhood.
Because that's what I've always wondered. When did it come about? How did it come about? If they were casual with it. The story with the people in the reflection there, did your mom ever talk about sort of what they looked like how they were dressed? Or?
She said that they were like not current, not modern.
Oh man, that's freaky.
Exactly. but it's always like the old comedic bit is that they're always dressed like old timey people.
Yeah.
Like no ghost comes back dressed in Jenkos and airwalks.
Yeah.
Like
they've all got monocles.
Exactly.
And
there's this ghost just playing PlayStation 5 for hours in my living room. But she said they were of the period. I asked her if she was scared, and it takes a lot to rattle our mother. She really doesn't.
Yeah.
It's so she wasn't so much like she wasn't terrified and ran up the stairs. She kind of was like, huh.
And she turned around, no one was there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of those instances where like you see it and then you look back and it's gone.
Man.
Yeah, I think can I just make a
go ahead.
Quick correction, I think, to what I said earlier. I think Mom and Dad did know that that the wife of Kaylee, whom I believe was in the wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
So then when they tossed the wheelchair, they stopped getting the
interest. And that's interesting because I feel like when you sort of displace an object like that, it sometimes increases paranormal activity from what I've heard in my general knowledge of the paranormal. So it's interesting that it seemed to get rid of it. I feel like with something like that, with a wheelchair, I don't know, you'd have to have some sort of ceremony where you bury it or
push it off and burn it.
Dad always says she's probably flying around, haunting the.
And this wasn't a wheelchair in your traditional. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a wheelchair in your traditional sense. I mean, if you look at wheelchairs
were the wheels
from back
this
then,
high off the ground like an old
exactly.
bicycle.
They were really big.
Yeah, it was basically like a chair on wheels.
Because I'm just trying to picture someone. Stay with me now. I'm just trying to picture someone navigating your home
with a wheelchair.
Right.
Yeah. Especially
That's
a
why she
wheelchair
was
from back then.
downstairs.
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. Well, they
That
kept
was
her in
why
the basement.
Yeah.
No. In the coal room with you.
It would have been. I think it would have been a pretty tough thing to be confined to the downstairs in this home.
Totally.
I mean, you could probably get out onto the porch, with some help.
Yep.
But you're not also then going very far.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the other story you mentioned about? I know this one. Your mom came in to check on you, and there was some woman hovering over your crib. And what else can you tell us about that one? Because that's another one that is.
I think
straight
there
out
was
of a
another
movie.
case of where she walked in, saw it, and it vanished
Immediately.
as soon as it happened. I mean, there's never been any sustained experiences with apparitions lasting more than a few seconds in this home. My paranormal experiences in this home have never been apparitions. They've always been audio. hearing things, and those have been enough to like not freak me out, but I'm like, that's a paranormal experience.
Yeah.
You know?
Can you? There's a couple that I remember. One has to do with like a telephone and a violin playing. What is that?
There was one night when I was home alone by myself. And because for the most part, I mean, we were latchkey kids because our parents owned businesses and worked 2 jobs and so on and so forth. So, you know, if I was home alone and Scott had something to go do or Kevin was in college, I was home alone. And I do vividly remember one night thinking that somebody's radio was left on upstairs.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, it must be on NPR or something because it's just, you know, so going upstairs to turn off the radio after hearing violin music playing and there be no radio on. And I'm no longer hearing that violin music. I mean, that was, you know, I'm like, okay, all right, that's special.
Was there one with a telephone, though?
There was one with a telephone where I'm upstairs. The only other person home is Scott. He's outside. I'm upstairs. You hear the phone ring. You hear it ring a couple of times. You're not going to be the one to go answer it, so you're waiting for somebody else to do it. So I hear footsteps go up the cellar steps. Boom, 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 boom. Like somebody trotting up from coming outside. Door opens up, door closes, phone stops ringing. That's it. You know, don't hear a conversation, don't hear anything after that fact. So, you know, 30 minutes later, 20 minutes later, I pop down the stairs, I come outside, I go, hey, Scott, who was on the phone? What are you talking about? I said, well, who's on the... Somebody called and you answered the phone. I heard you come up the stairs. No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And I'm like, okay, because I know that happened because it's long before I ever started partying or ever did a drug in my life, so I knew that it happened.
Yeah.
The other great story too is that
you didn't have any pets. At the time
no pets. I
that
mean,
would
like
have
these were
made that-
human footsteps coming up the stairs.
Exactly.
And it sounded to me just as if anybody else was coming up the stairs. Mom, Dad, Scott, whatever. And the phone stopping to ring. Hey, phone picks up, stops ringing.
There's another story. Or sorry.
Well, no, our front lawn. Is perfect for wiffle ball.
I feel like I know this. I know this one. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm getting over whatever my coworker gave me. So anyways, our front lawn's made perfect for wiffle ball. So if you're at bat, you're staring at the house. If you're pitching, you're staring towards the road. And I remember one time I was up here with Jim Swilinski. We played wiffle ball together all the time on the front lawn. And we're just in the middle of a game, and I'm tossing the ball. He's, you know, hitting or whatever. And he, all of a sudden, he's like, you know, I'm going to, you know, whatever, hit this ball. And he's getting in his stance, and he just drops the bat. And his face goes white as a sheet. And I'm like, I'm like, what's up, Jim? He's like, and he would not talk for like a good 10, 15 seconds. I couldn't get what happened out of him. And basically what happened is he saw above me, because I'm not looking at the house. He's looking at the house. The window in my mom and dad's room, the curtain, as if somebody was looking through it, and somebody lets go. Yeah. And it closes. That's what he saw. That's what he saw. And Jim was terrified to enter the house many times after that fact. And I have no reason to disbelieve what he saw, because I felt as what I was seeing was so genuine and authentic. His reaction was, you know,
why would he do that?
Why would he do that? And why then? And else, and it wasn't one of those things too that we had told Jim about. So he actually saw a physical manifestation of it. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, too, I've seen it with the doors, and I've posted videos of the doors.
I remember those videos, yeah.
The doors on Brixton's room, or the door, will slightly open and slightly close many times over. And it's not wind. It's not anything, because I've done it in the winter where the windows are closed, the door is closed, there's nobody moving, there's nothing. And it's almost as if the door is opening and closing for somebody to just check in.
There's no drop ceiling in that room.
No drop ceiling. There's no
like anywhere
nothing.
Air could get in.
Yep. And I remember hearing my door slam several times. And finally I set up the phone.
Yeah.
To down the hallway.
I've seen that video, yeah.
And the door just closes. I mean, it's not aggressive, but it's as if you were casually entering the room and shutting it behind you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that one. Was there one that... And I've heard Al tell the story about you guys went downtown. You guys came back, and what was that one?
That was like hijinks night, where we all went down to the town, street fair. We're down there for a couple of hours. There's nobody at home. while we're down there. It's me, Marco, whomever else at the time, coming back, and all the doors are open, all the lights are on, radios are on. And I mean, it was just enough to make us freaked out, because it's not like these occurrences happened all the time and every day, but they happened. But when they happened, you remembered them. It was almost as if they were just reminding us that they were here.
Exactly.
And just saying, hey, we're here. But it's never been anything evil or I've never felt threatened.
Yeah. And I was talking to Kristen about these stories, and some of them, and one we haven't got to yet, but she said, how do you go on living in that house knowing that, like, do you just anticipate a jump scare around every corner, like in a movie? But it sounds like it's not aggressive. It's just, hey, just want to let you know I'm here.
They're content to live here. Like, I thought about this the other day. If I was a ghost and I wanted to haunt my house, would I want to rush the people that were living there out of there and then make it known as a haunted house? Of course not, because then nobody buys the house. The house doesn't get heated. It collapses into itself. It's no longer a home. Then you're an even sadder ghost than when you began, because not only are you dead, but you haunted wrong. Mm-hmm. You haunted the house wrong. I mean, it's like, and plus, it seemed like the people that lived here.
That's funny.
Whatever. I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in heaven or hell, but I do believe in a sense of energy. And I believe that whatever energy it's neither created nor destroyed. And so if you live in a space for a long enough time, I believe that your energy is transferred into the dwelling of that home, and perhaps in whatever afterlife it may be, if you're allowed graciously to live back in the place that you wanted to be at, that's great. That's why I feel bad for anybody that buys the house that my ex-wife and I had. Because the walls are going to be full of bad energy. Bad energy.
That's
I'm going to part-time go back and haunt that house when I die. Maybe, if you get a choice.
I don't know if that, I don't know when you're a ghost, if you can go from A to B.
Do you choose?
Do you
choose?
Know if you can...
Okay, would you like to haunt the place you died? Mm-hmm. Would you like to haunt the place you lived? Or would you like to haunt the place that you wish you always were?
Well, I don't know. Would you want to go back to that? And haunt that place, with all the kind of bad memories,
right?
There?
Exactly.
Yeah.
As a spirit, I get it. If you're taken tragically, instantaneously in a murder, your head gets lopped off, it explodes, whatever happens, and it's just that. I could understand your energy being trapped in there, but say you die gracefully and peacefully, and you get, and they're like, "Where do you want to go?" I know. I'd like to go back to the home I always lived in. Okay.
I've never, we had in our house. I feel like there's pretty good energy. There was tons of kids there. I never felt any bad vibes. So there's Kevin. Can you talk about? And this is the most infamous one. And this one always gives me the chills. But do you know the one I'm talking about?
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah. You want to set this up for us?
Yeah. Well, I've seen her. And growing up, and hearing mom and dad talk about all this kind of stuff, it would. I agree with Colin, and it's never been a menace or anything like that, and it's probably been benevolent, and that's why I'm also just going to correct that John Cayley went on to not raise pigs. But chickens.
We have another correction, folks.
So there's chickens around here. He's very proud of his poultry, apparently.
If this was a video podcast, we'd have pop-up facts from Kevin along the way in the podcast.
This is how my brain works these days, people.
DVD commentary with Kevin.
It's 7 seconds, 11 seconds.
Well, we need to
seconds.
Tick off the pig people.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get anything wrong because I want to respect literally their integrity and their honor and who they were as real people. So that's why I feel it's a little important to get it correct. But so I think it was I was in about 4th grade. And so that would have been, I don't know, 1980, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
You would have been 10 and 80.
I wasn't born yet.
And I wish I could be off. I could have been in,
That totally makes sense. 80, 81,
it was about
79.
that.
Yeah, around.
10 years old, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, although it might have been later because the television was color. No, it wasn't color. No, it was
At
color.
that point,
I don't know.
if you had color TV,
Well,
you were making a little more money than some other people too.
Yeah, this is important because the TV back in that day was in the part of the house that now sticks out toward the road, and
Right here?
So there's a front window, and there used to be a couch right in front of the front window of the house, another couch along the long end, and the television was kitty corner to this. And now the television was to the right of an archway from this front room that leads into, if you go left, the front hallway to the front door. If you go a couple more feet in the same kind of little ante room there's the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you step a few more feet, and then you go through another archway that kind of splits off into the kitchen and then sort of the dining area to the right. At the time, and maybe I was older than 10 years old, but I remember at the time, like watching Saturday Night Live, and that was my Saturday ritual for a number of Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I would fall asleep on the couch eventually. And so there's this one particular Saturday night, and Dad might not have been at sleeping in the house that night, not because of it. He might like been on a trip or something like that. I recalled like one of the parents sort of not being in the house or something. And so it kind of just felt, a little lonely that night, I guess, to me. And so I'm laying down on the couch with a blanket on me, and I'm watching the television. There's one lamp on in the room that I'm in, and that lamp is enough to shine from sort of the corner behind me and kind of shed some light, like going forth through that little archway. But that area from like where the first archway is to the second one is like where like
foyer.
It starts to get gray.
Sounds like a foyer.
The light starts to get gray right there. And then by the time you hit the kitchen, it's pitch black because the lamp behind me was the only thing on besides the television.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of well lit, right? So I'm watching TV, and all of a sudden I started to get a little freaked out.
So
it was
felt
like
something before the experience. You felt an energy.
I kind of felt. Well, it was like this whole uneasy feeling anyway.
Really?
Yeah. That even for me, it just felt uncomfortable.
Something peculiar.
Because
you were just peering. If you looked out, you were just peering into darkness, into the kitchen.
Well,
kind of?
that would have been that. Yes, you would have looked out into something that got from progressively darker. Okay.
Yeah.
And still, in that little between the two archways area, it's just sort of like it's where goes from. That's really where it starts to go from light into darkness. It kind of disappears in there. But I'm watching Saturday Night Live, and all of a sudden, like as I'm staring at the television, I see this white rush come down the stairs, like right. So it caught my eye there. Okay. And then as it's coming down the stairs, I'm starting to look up, at what is this white thing I'm seeing like out of the corner of my eye come down the stairs. And so then I all of a sudden look to where everything then just, I catch the sort of the tail end of this white whoosh coming down the stairs and like making it onto the floor. And then the thing just turns and faces me. And the thing, I shouldn't say the thing.
The apparition.
It was a figure.
Apparition.
It was a woman.
Yeah.
It was a woman. She was slender. She was probably, I don't know, 5 feet tall. She had shorter curly hair. I mean, you know, not tight curls, but just sort of nice curls. She actually looked pretty, and I hate to say, you know, but she was old.
Old?
She was old. And
Old timey or old?
no, old in age.
Old in age.
She
Gotcha.
she was an old woman. So I'm looking at her, and I think that I looked away from the TV and carried that vision with me. You know how you look
Right,
at
yeah,
something
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and then you look
yeah.
into the darkness,
Yep.
and it kind of carries that vision to you.
Yeah. Wow.
And so she's stopped, of course, there, right? And she's staring at me as I'm looking back at her, and I'm like, oh man, like, this is really
Weird?
weird.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm like, I'm just gonna close my eyes because I'm a little bit wigged out.
Classic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna close my eyes, and I'm gonna put the blanket over my head for a few more seconds, just to kind of like rest my eyes like into the blackness, you know. And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna, I gotta lift this blanket because I just want to make sure that, it was just the TV. I just want to make sure that it was just the TV. I'm telling myself this. And so I let it go for several seconds, right? Because I'm hoping not to. I lift the blanket. I still have my eyelids closed. I remember this. And then I decided, even before I opened my eyelids, I'd already decided that I was just going to look straight back into the blackness where the bottom of the stairs were, between the two archways in the foyer. And so that's where I closed my eyes, and that's where I was opening them back up. Like I kind of froze my eyes in that space. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to open my eyelids now. And then I did, right at that spot. And she was still there.
That's messed up.
She was still there. Now, she was there long enough that I could see what she was wearing. And it was, from her shoulders, kind of draped this sort of white, sort of very blousy, I don't want to say, maybe it was a gown, but it wasn't fancy in the sense of a ballroom gown. It was more like of a sleeping gown. And then I kept looking down, and it had some prettiness to it too. It was kind of like some, the doily stuff there. And I'm like, of course, I'm like shocked because I'm like, this
You're
this
supposed to
stuff's
go
still
away.
there.
This is
This
not
still
mom.
there.
Exactly. I
It's
did
still
the
there.
thing. I put the blanket over my head. You're supposed to not be
Yeah.
there anymore.
Right. And then I go down
These are the
and then-
rules.
These are the ghost rules.
and as I'm looking down, like the bottom of her gown is getting progressively just no more definition to it. She was floating.
Yeah, because ghosts never have feet.
She was floating in the air.
That's another rule.
And you could tell because it was just black under there. I mean, there was just like, it kind of like dissolved into
Happens
darkness.
to your
And
feet
then,
when you die.
I'm thinking, like I'm starting to get a little scared at that point.
A little scared.
Starting at this point,
but
he's
it's
starting
not-
to
it's
get
not-
scared.
It's not horrible though. This is not horrible because
Right.
ordinarily you would think I'd be screaming, yelling, but it was not like, it was just like, whoa, you were in the presence of something. You know what I mean? And you're
Yeah.
like, I can't, like this thing. She's looking at me. I keep calling it a thing. She's looking at me. I'm looking back at her. I'm testing my eyesight, opening it back up. She's still looking at me, and I'm still looking right back at her. And I'm getting a long enough look
That's
to
intense.
notice that she's got no feet. And then, and her face is really not doing an expression of anything either. It was just kind of like a very not upset face or anything like that. It was like
She's like,
she like
Flat
flew
affect.
down the stairs.
you like SNL?
flew down the stairs, squared up to face me right directly as I was looking at her from the couch. And then after I had, gotten that good look at her up and down, all of a sudden, as soon as she had kind of set up into that position from down the stairs, she then flipped around. Okay? I want to say rotated like this. Right? So you're doing she did like a 180 and then whoosh, she came down the stairs that quick. She was.
So she would have disappeared into the kitchen?
She disappeared right back into the kitchen and to the left.
Oh, that's messed up.
Yep.
So after that, did you tell mom and dad?
Oh, yeah. I told them the next morning.
And what was their reaction? Yeah.
They weren't surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's Sheila.
Well, I don't know. I mean, and who knows who this woman was? And, clearly she was having the run of the house because she was no longer perhaps confined to the wheelchair. Dad got rid of the wheelchair and she's flying around the house having a great time.
And the thing is, I always attribute it to there being a pause between getting rid of the wheelchair and other activity happening. Mm-hmm. It's almost as if she had time, or whatever spirit is connected to this house had time to return to it. Because we tend, maybe she was tied to that wheelchair, personally, or whatever. But once we got rid of it, there was a gap in experiences. But then there came my experiences. And I can attest to the fact that I've definitely experienced paranormal happenings in this home.
More like
nothing to the extent of that. That is substantial.
From more like, playing pranks with keys and feeling air rushed up down the stairs. I mean, that stuff just ended.
Yes.
And then,
the much more physical experiences I think that you guys had ended. I think whatever happened on my end was kind of a maybe a residual peripheral paranormal experience. Maybe, maybe in some points she moved on, but some of her remained here. You can never tell, because do we know? We don't know.
So like sometime after I saw her come down the stairs and whatever, there's a period of time after that, maybe, I don't know, a year or two. And I was, doing something in the attic, right? And the attic in this house is like, it's not a livable attic, but as a kid, you could hang out there,
Just inhale fiberglass insulation.
Yeah, the storage space, more than anything.
It's,
not finished by any means, not by today's standards.
No.
I mean, it's actually punched up now, but in a good way. And, it didn't have the greatest floorboards and things like that. And God, there was just all kinds of stuff. I mean, there was stuff that belonged to obviously our family, but there was stuff that just belonged to whoever left it there before, and just odd stuff. So it was just kind of fun to go poke around. And of course, Dad had an awesome selection of 45s and 78s and things like that. And I just would go up there, plug in the record player and play them. And so it groove out. But there, sometimes you would like find money, and the floorboards didn't come together in such a way where you could, large things fell through the floorboard cracks, like, I don't know, a ski pole, could do that. And so, there, of course, there was parts of the, at that time that, it just had rugs on it. But, so you'd like peel back one of the rugs to like say, hey, well, what's under this space, on the floor. And sort of reached down, and because I saw something shiny, like sort of, I guess what must be the ceiling, boards or something like that. And I picked it up, and it was this, very small, I would almost say like a pendant. And it had the name, it was very it's kind of like ornate. It kind of looked like maybe, a fancy, like a handheld mirror that would be fancy, except it was like a pendant.
What was the size of it? Like a couple
it
inches?
was maybe like I don't know, like size of like a.
You could wear it on a necklace.
A neck. Yeah, it looked like that, and it had. I think it might have been punched out for to be worn in a necklace, but I just remember it was kind of beautiful, and it had just this nice carving around it in the same metal that it was in. And so I was looking at it, and I remember it said on the back Anne, A-N-N-E, and I was like, oh, that's odd. The front of it had to do with it might have been from one of the churches, if I recall correctly. Might have been like maybe Notre Dame or
More like a First Communion thing or something like that.
Well, it was. I believe it was just like the church on the front, and then it had her name on the back.
There was a picture of the church or a name of the church on the front.
I think it was like a more or less of a name of the church. So it was like written around in the circle around the decoration, and for all I can remember, it might have been a church. But the thing is, as I picked it up and I went, "Oh, this belongs to her, the woman that I'd seen."
Whoa!
Right? I just knew that this was hers, right? Because I would have picked it up, and
plus there's nobody in the family named Anne.
Walked away.
That's
it was Church Anne, but what the hell would she be doing?
Our Polish godmother came and stashed her medallion in her attic.
And so I thought to myself, I'm putting this back. And
so you put it back?
Yeah, because it's her thing.
Okay, and then what happened? Because is it still there?
So it's
as far as I know.
Shut the front door. Where is it? Let's bring that to Pawn Stars.
No, I didn't.
Haunted amulet. I'll give you $10.
I guess the thing is for me, it's like I felt a responsibility to put it back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
So best I can do is $3 store credit.
Come on, Chumley. You can get him a better price.
That's
Chumley's making a comeback.
Extremely haunted amulet.
Chumley's making a comeback.
I kind of know who he is.
So amongst the spray installation in our attic is hidden an amulet from
someone on the Titanic.
Right, exactly. I mean, I would assume that an action like that on your behalf probably pleased whatever spirit is in this home so much, because how many people would immediately run to have that object appraised and so on and so forth. The fact that you put it back is like such an 80s movie move. The boy, he knew enough to put it back, and then
I'm putting it back now.
Exactly. Here
putting
you go.
it back.
Please stop appearing in the kitchen windows. My mom just wants to get a coffee.
I don't think I wanted to mess with anything.
Really? So around what age was this? Again, 10, 11?
This might have been, again, it was a couple of years, so it might have been like maybe 12 or 13.
But still, in that adolescence, you were wise enough to put it back rather than to go run and say, hey, I've got this.
If you think about it,
thing.
I grew up with Mom telling me these stories of she'd crying in the night, kick off the things, she'd run downstairs, she'd come back up. I would be sound asleep and all tucked back in.
That's crazy. Well, you know what's going to happen later on tonight? I'm going to go running through the attic trying to find that.
No, don't. I would not do that.
Take it out and sell it.
You got to leave it alone. I guess.
Take that, Anne. I've got $75 now.
Colin, if you want to piss off the spirits,
haunt me all you want. Woo!
Then it's going to be like Poltergeist, where the house just kind of gets sucked into this vortex.
Yep. No, I think that's I mean, still, to even know the history of the house, but to still have that wherewithal to put it back, that's something. Because what 11 to 13-year-old doesn't love finding something special and being able to go.
But it was like special, but I just knew it wasn't mine, and I don't know. But why would it have? I'm not.
So was it one of those ones that you would open up and there'd be a picture in the middle, or if it was it?
No, it was kind of like
one and two sided.
It was kind of like it was about maybe the size of a nickel or bigger than a little bit of a nickel, you know? A little bit
But it wasn't something you could open up. It wasn't like a locket.
No, it was kind of like, you know,
Why don't we just
stamped
go
in
get
front
it right
and stamped in, written on, or, you know.
That's it. Get the
Stamped in
vacuum.
back.
Get the vacuum in the 1-inch pry bar.
It's right there.
We're gonna be ripping things up. What do you think what do you think if the spirits are in this home are now looking out at us? 3 guys
Look at these
around
morons.
the fire having a podcast about them.
What's a podcast?
What's a podcast?
I think
brains are
I think
hurting.
they're totally aware.
They're like, we're
I
not.
think they're totally
Sit
aware.
by
And
the
I think,
window.
Yeah, we're done hunting this house.
I don't think,
Everybody's got a podcast now.
That's funny.
no, I think they're looking out here, and I think they get it. You know?
I think they do
I hope
too.
they're cool
because,
with it.
because as we said, I've never felt anything evil
think so.
about it. I think it's just like with your experience seeing that apparition. I mean, that's enough to jar anybody. But the fact that it never gave you pause to think that it was going to harm you or do
Yep,
anything malicious.
It just didn't. It just
Yeah.
didn't. It didn't scare me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I went to bed.
Did you go upstairs then, or did you sleep on the couch? Or
No, I
did you-
slept on the couch.
Yeah.
For some reason-
yeah. I wouldn't have been going up those stairs.
I wasn't exactly excited to do that. But I was
Right?
like, you know, so I was like, yeah, I'm just going to
Walking
stay
up
here.
the stairs now.
For some reason, when you first told me that story, you had said that she looked disappointed, but maybe I was just making that up. But it was almost, but as you said, she had a very flat sort of affect, and there was
she's
not much
disappointed
there.
because she's dead.
Well,
I mean,
like
it's-
disappointed in something. I don't know. in
No, it was
something
like she was studying me. That's all I can say.
Do you remember what sketch was playing at the time on TV?
Oh, man.
Cheeseburger.
No,
Bassomatic.
I don't. I
Little
really don't.
chocolate donuts.
I really don't. I'm trying to think. I don't even know if
You're
it was
like the juice, huh?
Oh,
that was more my time.
Way
That was
too-
more my
yeah.
time.
Yeah. Okay.
I
No,
never
that's
saw
funny.
any ghosts during an Adam Sandler skit when I was watching SNL, and we've watched a lot down here.
That's funny. So I don't know if you guys have this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about. I have some really vivid dreams sometimes about people in my family that have passed on, and there's a couple that I haven't had them in a while, but there's 2 that always stick out, and one of them is I'm riding in my great uncle's late 70s, not El Camino. Is it an El Camino? No. I think it was an El Camino. So yeah, it was an El Camino, and I'm sitting in the front seat, and he's driving, and it's just so real. Like, he's turning the radio, and all I remember from that time with him is we always listen to AM radio, and the crackle of it, you know, that crackly AM radio. I can hear that in the dream. I can see the inside of the car. I can see his big sausage fingers turning the radio, you know, and we're just driving along, you know, and we're having a good time. And then the other dream I have is about
The fact that you can remember a great uncle blows my mind because I don't think I.
So every Sunday when I was a kid, he would pick me up. He would take me to the
Really,
arcade.
your great uncle.
Yeah, it was my Bopchi's brother.
So we'd come and pick you up. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was he would take me to the mall. He would go walk the mall. He'd get his exercise. He'd give me like $20, which would last me a
awesome.
ton of time in the arcade. And then we would go to Friendly's for dinner. And then he'd bring me back
That
home.
sounds like a good day.
It was amazing. And so some of my favorite memories are being in that car. And it was so comfortable. Like the seat, it was like sitting in your living room, riding in the car.
yeah.
You know?
I
And
bet you
listen
on
to that-
days when the sun was coming in the window
That's
just
exactly how I remember it.
Yeah,
The sun is
yeah.
coming in. And the other dream I have is I'm in my Bopchi's house, which is now my aunt's house. And my Bopchi's there. Her husband's there, my grandfather. And my Bopchi's brother, my uncle. My uncle lived there with them. And one of the dreams I have, I'm literally walking up the front steps to the door. I open the door, and they're all sitting there in the living room. And it's just, they're like, hey. You know,
That's awesome.
It's crazy. And then I remember
That's a good dream to have.
no, it's one of those dreams that's just
It doesn't get weird at any point, like a freaking elephant covered in whipped cream
no,
doesn't come
no,
barreling through the back
no,
door.
It's one of the most normal dream, reoccurring dream that I could have. And there was one dream where I was in their home, and I remember talking to them, and I said,
Shut up! You can talk in your dreams. Can you hold conversations? Are you
not-
consciously aware in your dreams? Are you one of those dreamers?
yes.
You're more able to control what you say and do.
If I have a dream that I don't like it, like if I'm scared, I can kind of end the dream.
Really,
know?
you too, Kev?
Yeah.
Shut
or just
up!
be like, no, I'm hitting the switch.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't remember
I
my
don't
dreams
have that
anymore, but I used
switch.
to be able to do that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So this one dream, I'm talking to my bapchi and my uncle and my grandfather in their house, and I said at one point to them, I said, I miss all of you. And then I turned to my grandfather and I said, especially you.
Oh,
and he gave
goddamn.
me like the biggest smile. And it was, and then I remember walking toward the door, and I walk out the door, and then it was like, I wake up.
Holy shit!
And it was, and I think I said that to my grandfather because he had died when I was like 11, and I didn't get to spend as much time with him as my bapchi or my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
They passed away in like 2001. But I remember like with my grandfather, I would bring over a box of baseball. You know, the big Topps baseball card, like every the whole season.
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
792 cards.
So I would just pick out a card, or any random card, and he would tell me everything about that player. He knew so much about baseball, and it was just sad because later in his life, he ended up with colon cancer, and I remember toward the end of his life, he couldn't remember who Roger Clemens was. So it was bad. So I think like maybe that's why I said it in the dream. But I want to ask you guys if you have had anything similar to that, but knowing that your father had passed away not too long ago, if you've ever had anything with him coming to you, talking to him in a dream like that,
I remember shortly after he died, Kevin had a dream that Dad came to him and basically led him on a journey through the cosmos. And like this is within 2 or 3 days after Dad's passing.
It was that night.
It was that night.
It was the night that he
and
died.
I,
yeah.
You can speak to it.
Yeah. No, it was.
Oh my God!
So I mean, and Kevin was touched by this, and it's not. We're not the type that are gonna manufacture these events or so on and so forth. But when Kevin came to me and he told me, I felt pretty special that he told me. And I was happy to hear that because I've been waiting for that this whole time since Dad passed. The only dream I had of Dad since he passed, it was really random, and it was like a year and a half after, and I'm in a crowded European city, and I'm going after somebody in the crowd, and the person I finally find is Dad, and then the dream kind of ended. Like I wish I had your ability to like sometimes I can kind of decide what I want to do and say during dreams, but for the most part, not mostly. And but
you
that was
gotta stop the dream. You actually have to say.
Oh, I
halt,
wish I had that, but
and then you act, and then I have to. Well, for me, I don't know about you, Mark, but you actually have to stop the dream and be like, no, I don't want it to be like this.
Exactly.
I want it to go another way.
Exactly.
But the fact that you had that dream about Dad, though, made me feel okay because I was all right with him appearing in your dreams and not mine because I was happy he was in somebody's.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that I did have happen was in July of 24. Dad passed in January 23. I'm on the Hoosick. No, not the Hoosick. It was the Hoosick going through Williamstown along the Mohawk Rail Trail. Mm-hmm. That's a Hoosick, right?
Yep.
So I'm going through the all the trees and stuff like that, trying to get to a fishing spot, and it's a sunny July day, and this has really been the only thing that is like I felt like Dad has reached to me on is I just heard my name in his voice, like he was just going, hey. It was just like Colin. Like trying to get my attention. It stopped me dead in my tracks because I heard it as clear as day. I heard it, and it made me stop and like stand there for like a good minute, going like, holy moly. Because my dad and I fish the Hoosick all the time. You know, it was one of those places. Maybe it was the area, and maybe Dad. I think like Dad came to Kevin because Kevin is the oldest, and Kevin is his firstborn son, and so on, and that's why I didn't feel like when I heard you had that dream, I was so happy. Because it just like, I'm like, good, he's in somebody's. And knowing Dad, he wouldn't show up in everybody's. You just, he would have picked, exactly like, I'm going to, cut my losses here. I got one dream tonight. Because he's probably fishing with Ted Williams. That's the way I put it,
funny. And no, those dreams that I've had, those were always, you wake up and you just kind of sit there in bed going,
are you sad or happy?
Jesus. No, I'm not sad.
Like when you wake up, you're sad when you wake up from a dream like that?
No, not at all. No, it's just really great. It's one of those ones. It's like, when you're in high school and have the dream about, the two girls in your school, and you're like, no, I want to go back to bed.
But I mean, it's like do you feel like sometimes after an emotional experience, my chest can feel very hollow, and it's like it feels like you take the deepest breaths because you have so much room in there to like put oxygen. And it's like it's not a sad thing and it's not a happy thing. It's kind of like you just know you've been through something.
Yeah, you just kind of sit there in bed and go, man. It was because there's so many emotions. Obviously, there's you're happy, you're longing for that time again. It's a lot, but it's never sad for me. It's always
so. Do you
really
think
nice.
in your mind? Is it you going back to that memory, or is it your loved one's spirits manufacturing that dream to happen in your head?
I don't know. I mean,
there's a little bit of both.
I think a little bit of both. But for me, I wish I could have had more time with them, maybe because I mean, my grandfather died on my mom's side when I was 10. On my dad's side, his father passed when I was like 2. His mom died when he was 12, so I never knew them.
It's a rough age to lose somebody.
We all in our family we feel like we had children later. All the grandparents and such. So they were always a little bit older. My grandma, my babci, and her brother died when they were both like 83, 84. But I feel like I didn't really get time with them as much as I would have loved to. I did with my uncle, but the thing is, back then I was a different person. I feel like I would have loved to have known them, obviously, who I am now, 44, and obviously I'm not the same person I was when I was,
right.
with them
but
now.
Do you feel in some way, regardless of religiousness or not, do you feel like in some way that they know?
That they know
you are who you are now.
Yeah, I would think so. That it's funny you mention that because that ties into a thought that I've always had for a long time about when we pass on and whether or not you believe in heaven or hell or whatnot. But if let's say you pass on and you're supposed to meet up with all the people that have passed before you in your life, and what does that look like? So let's say you pass on and you get to be with your favorite dog again. Okay, is your favorite dog in its prime form, or does it have cataracts and is limping?
Well, also too, I've thought about this too. Like, okay,
yeah,
so like,
exactly.
if it's gonna be for eternity, eventually you're gonna get sick of that dog. I mean, too much of any good thing is a bad thing. I've always thought, okay, you die, go to the kingdom of heaven, get to spend eternity with your family. Like, do I ever get a break?
Think about every molecule in every part of you who like makes you and your children them. Every atom of that was once part of a star.
Mm-hmm. Truth.
And so the fact that the universe can come together over billions of years and then all of a sudden produce something alive, which is then us. We are the stuff made of stars, which I think is a pretty cool thing. And I'm not saying anything revelatory here, but I think when it all comes to an end, our energy goes back into the universe.
I
And-
totally agree.
Mhm.
I
I
totally
think
agree.
it's all just kind of a big, and I also don't think we have any concept. Boy, this is going to sound really weird, but
Lay it on me, brother.
sometimes I wonder, I should say this, sometimes I wonder if humans have any concept of what time is. Like, in other words, I'm not just saying the expanse of it or the length of it, the here of it, the now of it, the moments to come of it. I'm talking about, like, do we have such a shallow understanding of what time is?
Is it getting shallower?
And that, well, right. I mean, do we have any, are we even just, when it comes to the big picture,
Yes.
like, do we probably have a very one-dimensional view of time? Perhaps?
Well, because time exists in its natural form, but time also exists in the way that we've defined it. Time in itself is a human construct, but time is also this completely unhuman construct. We felt the need to wrangle it and to put it into years and times and minutes. But like you said, do we have this concept of time?
So all that's to say is my way of explaining, or commiserating with the fact that I believe that some things, you can connect with other, parts of things, and why not? I mean, I'm not.
Well, I don't believe that
conspiracy theorist, but I don't actually.
The energy from nothing is erased. I mean, you've gone to Gettysburg. I've gone to Gettysburg. You go to these places and you feel what
Yeah.
went on there.
Yeah.
And I feel that to the gravity of which whatever occurred there occurred, it sustains and it continues to resonate throughout whatever. I believe that things like homes and trees or whatever absorbs the energy, the grounds, the earth that we're in. I mean, go to battlefields, go to anything where any great amount of like turmoil occurred, and you feel that.
Yeah.
You feel that. And it's not just because some guy is dressed in an old-timey war uniform going back in 1865. It's like, but there's something else. You're like,
I think there's a lot of interesting things that I hope. I don't think we're going to live long enough to be able to get to know, but I think it would be interesting to figure all that stuff out. And like I said, I think that's what sort of just twists things around and
But it's also not
makes
for us
what
to
seems
know.
impossible sometimes possible.
Yeah, but it's also for us not to know. I mean, think about it. If we figured that out, that would be the plateau that whatever omnipotent being runs this universe would be like, okay, hit the reset button. It's fascinating.
I think there's, I don't know if this is getting way off the track, Mark, but I think there's more of what we think we know, like as a human race, we think we know.
Big time,
like
big time.
Oh my gosh, have no.
There's the tactile. We as a human race have to have that handheld definitive answer, and especially nowadays where we're in possession of so many ways of knowledge and artificial intelligence and everything, we have to know the definitive answer. There's no wait for philosophy. There's no free room for that wonder,
I love how we ended up here when we started talking about a crippled dog with cataracts in heaven, right? We went pretty far in that little 2-minute stretch there. But no, that's the thing. Like, let's say you go on to the afterlife and you see, hey, Grandpa, look, we're like the same age now. Isn't that kind of weird?
I heard that everyone's 33 in the afterlife because that was the year that Jesus died. Yeah. No, seriously, that's a belief, is that when you go
Really?
to heaven, you're always 33.
Let's see.
And even if you died at 12, you're still 33. And if you were 87, you're 33. That's a Catholic. I'm sure that's a Catholic Christian thing.
I've never
but-
heard that. I was going to say, did you hear that on like Joe Rogan or something?
There was Dad's,
No, I heard it Kill Tony.
after Dad's there was Dad's near-death experience, and so
Which one? Christ.
the one where
He's in the hospital.
he was he was in the hospital, and he was undergoing an operation, and he died for a while on the table. And he's all of a sudden he's looking down at the surgical table. He's looking down at himself on the surgical table. He's he's going up higher toward the ceiling. He's getting a whole view of the room. And then Dad described then all of a sudden seeing a bright light and like a tunnel of light. And he kept going toward the tunnel, really, or not to the tunnel, through the tunnel toward the bright light. And he said he felt very comforted. Of course, he didn't end up dying that time, but so he's telling me this, and he said he felt very comforted because it was everybody that he knew who had died before him. And so he's going through this tunnel, and by this time it would be his grandparents, some of his great aunts and uncles who would be the people, some uncles probably too, no doubt. But his dad had died, and his father died in 1972 or 1973, and maybe it was even 74. Sorry, but he said all of a sudden his dad stepped out from the darkness of the tunnel and came into the light and put up his arms and put his hands against his shoulders to hold him back from going any farther into the light. And he said his father looked at him and smiled, and he goes, "It's not your time."
Holy moly.
And then, boom.
Gosh.
Dad was,
So-
they saved his life. Maybe
Maybe it wasn't his time, though. Is it the condition that does you in,
Obviously,
or is it
he
whether
lived.
Yeah, he ends up living.
Again, when did he tell you this? Because it seems like I can see your dad just being very casual and be like, yeah, so.
No, he was pretty, I think it meant something to him. It kind of, I don't want to say it kind of shook him, but I think it was like a profound, I don't want to screw this up type of thing. I want to be, I have a responsibility here, in life to my family, and I want to, that was kind of the takeaway there.
Wow.
For me, at least. And so, he just stepped out of the shadows, and he smiled, put his hands against my father's shoulders, and he just shook his head no, and he said, "It's not your time." And
wow, that's a very common, I feel like, illustration of, you're floating above your own body, you're looking down at it, bright light. That's not the first time I've heard that, obviously. Mm-hmm. That's what you hear a lot from people that have had that experience. So that's crazy.
Yeah, it was quite the it was quite the thing. And again, like I said, I think it
but again, it's very emotional.
Affected him.
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely,
and not in a negative way. I think he actually. I always got the impression that he was glad to see his dad.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because I think I always got the sense Dad was impacted by something like that. Because I'd heard about the stories, previous to me being born, but it's different when I hear it right now, because that kind of makes sense that Dad saw something bigger than the plane of existence that we all, happenstance every single day. Especially nowadays, where I think it gets trivialized even more, because we're just like rank and file, with our social media addictions and so on and so forth. And I'm just as guilty as anybody.
Yeah,
but
we
it's
all
like,
are.
I can imagine that the appreciation for an event like that would probably be greater for Dad back then than it would be for us today, because we'd be like, "Oh, Jesus!" I read an Atlantic article about an experience like that.
I can't wait to make a TikTok video about that experience.
Well, that's what it would be, right?
Yeah. How can I monetize this?
Right. That's what it would be. And back then there was nothing like, you either share it or you keep it personal. You know?
Yeah. So I had talked about a few experiences in my parents' house,
Oh yeah, no, you obviously have conduit. I believe it. Like I think it speaks to your dream experience.
It could be, yeah. I never
That
thought
to
of
me,
it that way.
to me says that you're on some sort of ethereal plane.
I never thought of it that way. But my parents' house, I mean, it was built, I don't know, I think in the late 1800s, and I had a few experiences there. But I remember as a kid, like when I would go to bed, I always slept with my back to the door. And for some reason, there were times where I almost felt something like a heaviness, you know, but nothing really ever happened that was malicious or anything. I never felt that. One time I woke up in my bed, and I've told you guys this before. I woke up in my bed and I sat up, and this is one of those things where I don't know if it was just my eyes adjusting to the room. Was I still dreaming? I don't think I was. I was awake, but I remember sitting up and there was a dark figure at the front of the bed, and I thought it was my dad in his volunteer fireman's jacket, and then it immediately kind of vanished. But again, I don't know if that was just my eyes adjusting to the room, but it was like,
So you only saw the silhouette part?
it was a silhouette. But again,
What made
I thought
you think it was a firearm, like a fireman's?
because it looked like my dad when he put on his fireman's jacket. It was like kind of big and bulky and like long. You know, the coat was a long coat. Yeah, it wasn't like wearing a hat or. I mean, it was just
Wasn't Long
like,
John Silver, was it?
it was that. No, it was the Gordon's fisherman actually. So. There was another weird thing that happened in my bedroom when I was a kid where I remember waking up and looking into the mirror on my dresser and seeing, I know you're going to laugh at this, but there was like newspapers.
What?
Like flying through the mirror.
Really?
And then in the same situation, there was water. I saw like almost water squirting out of the floor. Now this is bizarre because like I felt like I was awake. I don't think I was dreaming, but I remember it got to the point where I went downstairs, and I was a kid, and I went into the bathroom, and I opened up the cabinet under the sink. For some reason, I was checking for leaks. I was checking for water leaks.
Huh.
And I remember telling my mom about it. I remember her being on the phone with my aunt and like walking into the room again. She's like, and you said you saw water squirting out? Like she was talking to my aunt. Like, what the heck is this? Like, did we like give him drugs or something? So there was that one. But I think one of the creepiest ones was I opened the door to my basement one time and I was all alone in the house and I heard footsteps. And they were like coming from the back end of the cellar toward the stairs, like clomp, 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 clomp. You know, I don't think it was the dog in another part of the house. It was like coming from the basement. And I shut the door. And it's one of those, I think, with Kevin's story where it's like I shut the door and then I was kind of like freaked out, but then I went on with my day. You know, I didn't dwell on it too much. And thinking about it now, I'd be like, that would scare the shit out of me. I don't know.
But would it scare the shit out of you, though?
I think so.
I mean, I think our human senses are enough to let us know when something is dangerous and not. I think we've always got that tied in inherent instinct. So whenever we experience these kind of spiritual, paranormal phenomenons, we know whether to be scared or not.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking earlier about the librarian in Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
There was a story though that I used to scare the hell out of my sister with. I thought it was in one of those scary stories to tell in the dark books, but I don't know if it was. But we live right up to the woods, and there was a story that we read. I read to her, I think, when we were young, and it was a story about someone who lived, you know, in a house that kind of bordered the woods like we did, and they looked outside one night and they saw these two little yellow eyes way out in the forest, and then every time they looked out, they got closer and closer and closer.
What the
And my sister, that killed her. She
Yeah.
like refused to sleep in her room because you look out her window and it looks straight toward the woods across the river, and she kept she would not sleep in that room. She kept saying, "Ma, Oh, the two glowy eyes story. The two glowy eyes. And so for years, that story about the two glowy eyes just destroyed her. And it's a scary story, you know. But that's one I remember from my parents' house, where it got to the point where she wouldn't even sleep in the room for a while.
We used to have Halloween parties at this house that would scare the crap out of any kid nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my mom and dad used to throw Halloween parties.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And through Scott's adolescence and my adolescence.
Was
And-
Ann invited?
What's that?
Was Ann invited?
Ann? Ann.
No, Ann.
Oh, Ann from the house. Yeah.
Ann from the attic.
No, we didn't invite her. She was here in spirit. But, like, we would throw Halloween parties at this house. Like, I thought you meant Ian.
No.
That were just, like, over the top and would scare the crap out of anybody. And my mom would do seances.
Shut up.
Yeah. And she would come down the stairs in a robe and a mask. And she was not my mom when she did this. She went to another place to become an actress. And, like, she was just like, and I remember grabbing her arm and going, like, Mom, this is like part of the party, right?
Stop.
This is a part of the party. And she wouldn't break character.
She wouldn't break character?
She wouldn't. And that
That's
only scared the
terrifying.
crap out of everybody else at the party even more.
That's terrifying.
But there was this one time where, you know, during the party we had to complete certain tasks. And so we came out here to the backyard where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
And right behind you was a giant pile of sticks. I'm talking like 8-9 feet tall. And we came out to the deck, all the party goers, and in the pile of sticks was a, you know, wolf mask. And you know, like, remember those plastic, like, hands that you would get with the masks?
Yeah.
You know, like, so there's one of those stuck in there. And you got to go out and take one of these silver dog bones, which were dog treats wrapped in tinfoil, and put it in the wolf of the mouth of the wolf.
Jesus Christ.
Right? So we come out here.
This is a crazy
You know,
story.
first kid comes out to the wood pile. And it's like, seriously, this is like, I don't know what we were doing collecting sticks at the time. Like, there was a giant pile of sticks there. And first kid goes out and puts the bone in the wolf's mouth, and doesn't the wolf go, because who's under this pile of sticks? I'm not talking, actually not sticks, I'm talking lumber.
Yeah.
Is Kevin.
Oh, really?
I was wondering-
His head's in the mask. His hand's in the plastic hand. So, and none of us had a clue. And so all of a sudden he just goes, and the kid booked it back to the deck, like almost hit it. And then the rest of us had to do the same. It was fantastic. And then we did these cemetery walks in the, what was that, Maple Street?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we would have to do walks by ourselves to the cemetery. And as we were walking through, you know, we got a hayride up there in the back of the pickup truck. That was great. But then we would be walking through, and we would just all of a sudden hear off in the distance this demonic voice, and this laughing, and this cackling, and we would scare the shit out of us. So we'd run, and we ran down to, you know, the Anthonyum part where they would put bodies in during the winter. And out came my dad in a trench coat and a giant scary mask, and he's chasing after us. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
yeah.
He was hiding in that.
He was hiding, yes.
In that Anthonyum?
Yes. And somebody was off like 100 yards out behind a grave going, I mean, scaring the
Holy
crap out of us.
shit.
Scaring the crap out of us.
That was
Well, that's
me.
the
I think that was
seances
my
my
job.
mom led in this house. I'm convinced that part of them are responsible for whatever spiritual activity reemergence we got.
Wow.
She was like drawing things in like fake blood and burning it in a silver bowl.
Sounds like she was.
Mom
possessed.
doesn't mess around. I'm kind of convinced that Mom has a tie to the other side.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
No,
that sounds
our
crazy.
Our Halloween parties were something to behold.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for doing all the research on the house and all that. And the stories are just like, I got literal chills just listening to some of them. So thank you guys so much. All right.